This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 126. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guest is Nicole Spencer with Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue.
The iguana especially, I've just developed such a passion for them. They're so beautiful and they've got amazing personalities. They can also be the sweetest thing. I mean, I was upset one time and Seamus climbed on me while I was crying. And he just sat in my lap. He knew. I don't know.
First, just want to say to our listeners in the U.S., happy 4th of July weekend. We're so excited to have Nicole Spencer on as she shares the world of iguana rescue. Nicole shares some fantastic information and wisdom about caring for iguanas, and you won't want to miss her story. If you want to learn more about Nicole and Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/126. That's 126.
I am a part of Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue, and we are based in Wilmington, North Carolina. We're kind of spread out, so we serve several counties around here. I am up in a little town called Willard, where I have a farm, and we have not only farm animals, but we have lots of exotic animals. There's two main houses that take in animals. I take in all the iguanas, and my partner Bruce down in Southport takes in the snakes and other random meat-eating lizards. And we just get calls from around the area from people who need to give up their reptile for whatever reason, and we take them in and see if they need any kind of rehabbing or vet care, and then we try to find them a good home.
What are the range of reasons why people have to give up their pets?
We've gotten them for all kinds of reasons. I personally get them because, I take in the iguanas, so they're too big. They don't understand that they get this tiny little cute lizard in the pet store and it turns into this 6-foot giant. A lot of the ones I've gotten are because they're too big. We get a lot of ones that they didn't get proper care, so they've gotten sick and the people don't know what to do with it, and they're not going to spend all this money at the vet on it, so they want to find somebody else who will. And then we work with the local animal control. So we've gotten, just recently, a town called Whiteville near us had a large drug seizure of several houses. And there were some reptiles abandoned in one of the houses. And they were full of mites and roaches and all kinds of things. There were snakes and bearded dragons, and they all went to Bruce, and he took them to the vet, and he did a really good job. I don't think he lost any of them. He did a really good job getting them healthy again and getting them adopted out.
When you think about your first reptile, can you tell us a little bit about what your experience was and how'd you get the knowledge over time?
I got started because I had never been around reptiles. I'm not scared of them, but I've never had any inclination to own them, never thought twice about them. But we walked into a Petco store one day and just looking for something for the dogs, and the Reptile Rescue was there. And they were a new group. They had just started maybe a year or two before that, and they had an iguana there, and it had special needs on it. And I've never even seen an iguana before. But I talked to Kim about it, and I said, well, what's special needs about it? And she said, well, he's suffered from metabolic bone disease, so he's underweight, and he's a little deformed, and he doesn't have all his fingers, so he can't really climb trees like he's supposed to. And honestly, I held him one time, and my husband saw the look in my eyes, and he's like, "We gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta run other errands." And we got to the car, and I said, "I need that iguana." He kind of lets me have what I want. So I went back, and Kim gave me this, book on iguanas, and she said, "We have the cage was turned in. It's this big, huge cage. We can deliver it to your house." And personally, I probably would not have adopted to me. Because I was not prepared, and I had no idea what I was getting into. But he came, and the cage didn't even fit through the doorway. I had to take it apart and rebuild it inside the house. And it was definitely a learning curve. I started looking up information on them and just getting on different Facebook groups and trying to learn as much as I can. And it's been, 6 or 7 years now. I've learned a lot. And quite honestly, when I think back to those days, I'm like, I am surprised Seamus is still alive.
So his name is Seamus?
My number one baby.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what makes Seamus special to you?
He's such a sweet boy. He really is. He's got the cutest little face with a little, overbite, and now he's got a cleft lip because he hurt his face on wire. he'll come up to you on the couch and come sit in your lap, and he's just really a sweetheart. First time I picked him up, he just kind of cuddled into my neck, and that was about it. I was in love.
As you were learning more about how to iguana care, what did you learn, and what kind of surprised you?
I learned a lot about UV lighting. I've learned, you definitely get what you pay for. A lot of people try to get away with the cheapest option, and the more expensive lights will last you longer and do so much better for your animal. Because, we're trying to recreate the sun, That was definitely, a learning curve over the years. I was feeding him vegetables. I knew that much, and, I had UV light on him. The humidity thing, I didn't understand how important that was for quite some time. I thought, I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. It feels like soup outside in August. To me, this is humid. You start to realize we're not quite as humid as we think we are, and especially during the winter. And I really didn't. That was a big one. That's one I preach a lot now, is humidity is key. They really need a lot of humidity to shed properly and to live. They don't drink like we do.
How easy or hard is it to maintain a good humidity level throughout the year?
Well, like I said, we're really humid here in the summer, so it's not too bad. If I have an outdoor cage for them, they're getting a decent humidity. But inside the house, which is, where most people keep these as pets, it's going to be a lot drier with the air conditioning running and the windows closed. And unless you want to sit in a sweat box, you're not giving them proper humidity without a good humidifier and an enclosed space for them. Really, the amount of humidity they would need would rot out your house after a while. So it's a balancing act. It's definitely a balancing act. And the best cages for them would be enclosed in glass or plexiglass so that it keeps the humidity inside their house instead of being in your house.
And what kind of iguana is Seamus?
He's a green iguana.
Okay. After Seamus, what was the next step for you?
The next step was getting involved, just with the iguanas itself. The rescue, I made friends with the rescue, and they said, well, hey, we have Wilma, and Seamus really loved Wilma. They used to cuddle all the time. That's his girl. And I was like, all right, what's one more? And then a while down the road, they said, well, we got an iguana getting turned in. You think you want to try that? And I kind of got suckered into it along the way. I've always actually had a love affair with big tortoises. And I would go to Alligator Adventure and see the really big tortoises they have down there. And one day, Kim went to a reptile show, and she came home and she said, I got you a present. And she handed me this tiny little tortoise and said, that is a sulcata tortoise, and it's the third largest in the world. It's going to take quite a few years for it to get that big. It's probably the biggest you can own without any restrictions in the U.S. And all of a sudden I was a tortoise owner. And so it was tiny, and it was in a tank for a little while. But Bella is 4 years old, and I called it Bella because I was told by the vet and by the reptile people at the show, she said it was a girl, and Bella is definitely not a girl. We've changed it from Bella to Bela for Bela Lugosi. We decided to keep Bella, but we changed the spelling a little.
Definitely keeping the cool factor with a great name like Bela Lugosi, right?
Yes.
How many tortoises do you have in your family?
We now have 3. They're still pretty small. They still come in at night. Bella's starting to get pretty big, so by next winter he's probably going to need an outdoor home, because they start to get destructive when they get bigger with the shell and the claws that they have on their front legs. He's tearing up my drywall and the baseboards. When he wants out of a room, he's just going to kind of scratch until you let him out. But the little ones, my smallest one is still in a tank, and he's starting to go outside during the days and get some sun. I got a big pen outside in the yard.
I notice you love iguanas. I notice you love tortoises. Which one is easier?
Probably the tortoises, because they're just grass grazers. You can pretty much put them outside in the sun and let them graze. If they're inside, they still need UV light and heat and whatnot, but during the warm weather, they're so much easier. You can just stick them outside in a pen and let them graze on the grass. The iguanas take a little more time and effort. They need a fresh salad every day, and they need to make sure that everything's kept right inside their environment a little more closely than the tortoise would.
When it comes to iguana diet, how many trips to the supermarket do you have to take?
I do two things here. One is I grow a very large organic garden, so I try to cut down on our food bill as much as possible. The other thing is my husband is now retired from his original job as a police officer, and he has gotten his retirement job at a grocery store as the produce manager. So he brings me home lots of produce almost daily.
Nice.
We go through quite a bit of greens. Those are, they're quick and easy to grow, but they can be hard when they're organic because the bugs just, like to feast too.
So how many iguanas do you have right now?
There are currently 20 here.
Whoa, wait a second. We went from Seamus to Wilma to Bella to now 20?
Yeah. Told you it snowballed. Well, some of them are mine. Like Seamus is mine, and I have a red iguana that's mine that I got at a reptile show. So some of them are my personal iguanas that'll never go anywhere. Some of them are turn-ins that are on the adoption list. They're listed on my website looking for homes. I actually have some that I'm babysitting for a friend that is in the process of moving, and they need to get settled and kind of build up their iguana room before they can get them back. I am a rescue, so I do have ones that I consider in hospice. They have medical issues, so I'm not going to adopt them out. I guess they become mine, but they'll just kind of live out their life in a comfortable way, and we'll do what we can for them until they probably will not live out their full lifespan.
Well, that brings up a good point, which is I'm sure you must see some really good success stories, but also probably some pretty sad situations where you're rescuing these iguanas.
I'm still shocked at the way some of these iguanas come to me. I don't understand how people let it get so bad. I mean, I had one, Jessie, who came in, and she had been burned so bad the skin was literally coming off her back. And they're like, I don't know how it happened, but I don't know what to do with it. She made it for quite some time. She had big scars on her back, but we healed her up. I've had a few that we try to take it to the vet, and it's just too far gone. I had a tiny little baby come in one time, and he had been kept in a tank in a shed and no light, and he was lethargic, and he made it, maybe 2 weeks before he finally gave up the fight. But sometimes there's just nothing you can do. They just get to a point where there's just nothing you can do anymore. And unfortunately, over the years, I've had several pass. They're just too far gone when I get them.
In some ways, it is helpful to have them live out their final days under some sort of decent care.
Every loss hits me really hard, and I'm at the point, I don't want to say I'm used to it because, you don't get used to it, but I'm at the point where now I feel kind of guilty that I didn't do enough. But I know, like I had Stumpy. I called him Stumpy. He was a really big iguana, and he used to be a school pet in a science room. And I called him Stumpy because he only had 3 legs. He had been in an accident years ago and lost one of his legs. But then he was donated to like nature centers and parks, and he was donated to there, and they're not supposed to take in exotics, but this woman that was running it, she took in anything, and she fed everything dog food.
Oh no.
He developed issues from eating all that protein, and he lost all his body weight and had all this organ failure, and he finally came to me when she was shut down for not caring for these animals properly. The vet wanted to put him down. He's like, I don't know how much longer he has. I don't know if he's in pain. And I was like, well, let me try for a little bit. And I think I want to say he stayed with us about 2 years. Mm. And he was so unique, but he was so much fun. And he had a little place on the ground because he couldn't climb with his only 3 legs. But I mean, I hope he was happy for a little while at least. I hope I kept him comfortable enough.
If someone were to find an abandoned reptile, what would be your first piece of advice as far as how to properly start on the right foot with an iguana, for example?
Find somebody that knows what they're doing and ask them questions. There's kind of a lot to learn at first, and if you're not prepared to take it in, admit you're not prepared to take it in and find somebody who is. I see a lot on Facebook groups where people, quote, rescued this animal from a bad place, and now it's an even worse situation because they just don't want to admit they don't know what they're doing. It just takes a little bit of research, really, to find out how to care for them. But it does take a lot of space, and it takes effort, and it takes a lot of money at first to get it set up because you need all the equipment. And it's a commitment, and they last, they live for 25 years, so it's like having a child.
We're speaking to Nicole Spencer, part of Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue. When you think about all these different animals that you care about, why do you think you do it?
I've developed a passion for the iguanas. Like I said, I'd never really thought about them before. I'd never seen them. I didn't know they were in the pet trade. I mean, I've always loved animals. I've had, over the years, gerbils, dogs, birds, ferrets. I mean, I've always been an animal person. I got a whole farm full of animals outside. But the iguana especially, I've developed such a passion for them. The more I learn about them, they're such a magnificent creature, and they're so beautiful, and they've got amazing personalities. I mean, they can be a handful. They can get aggressive. Males during breeding season don't play. But, they can also be the sweetest thing. I mean, I was upset one time, and Seamus, climbed on me while I was crying, and he just sat in my lap. I guess he knew. I don't know. They got such personalities. They really do. I don't want to see them treated as a disposable animal.
Thanks for sharing that. How do you actually care for them? Because that is a lot.
I have a whole building dedicated to them. When we moved to this property, there was a shed on the property, and it was an insulated shed. And so we built out the entire shed with cages, and the whole building is heated and humidified properly, and it's entirely dedicated to them. Everything's sealed up, so hopefully it won't rot one day. And we are currently in the process, because we've only been here a year, so all this stuff takes time.
Sure.
But we're currently in the process of building outdoor cages where they can go in and out through their window. So during the warm times, they'll be able to go in and out to the sun as they please.
Amazing. So, we just want to say thank you for that. I mean, that's incredible, the amount of work and effort and resources you're putting in, your time and your money, and really your heart, right?
I wouldn't do all that for them and have this many if I didn't love them so much.
What does your middle school child think about your love of reptiles?
He loves it. He's more of a snake guy, though. For a little while, we had some snakes at the house. He just loved it. He thought that was the greatest thing. He still loves the snakes. Anytime we get together with Bruce, who does the snakes, and we do a show, he's all about the snakes. He's holding them and showing them off to the people that come up to our booth, and he's really into snakes and reptiles. And he's kind of over the iguanas, I guess. He loves them, but he's just kind of over them. They're a part of the house. It's nothing to see, an iguana wandering through the house or coming into his room. So it's just part of the scenery.
Right. It's like having a brother or sister who you just really don't want to talk to anymore, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
If someone were to approach you and say, "Hey, I'd love to help out. I'd love to adopt," what are some of the questions you ask folks to make sure that they truly are committed and qualified?
I try to run it a lot like, a dog rescue would run it. You have to fill out an application. You have to have a home check. I want to make sure you have the cage and the lights and everything before you bring home an iguana. That's why I say I would have never adopted to me. I really don't mind adopting to new owners as long as they seem willing to learn and, want to give them the best that they can. But, I would ask them things, like, do you know what they eat? Do you know what kind of light they need? Do you know they need a special vet? Do you even know there is one in town? And these are all kinds of the questions. And I don't expect them, if they're a new owner and they're interested and they want to learn, I don't expect them to know all the answers up front. But the application kind of gives me an idea. If they've got it on there, well, they eat pinkies. And, obviously they don't have a clue and they need a little more education before they're ready to own an iguana.
They're probably thinking of either a different kind of reptile or a bird or something else, right?
There's still a lot of misinformation about iguanas eating meat. Iguana care has come a long way in a relatively short time. I have a friend on Facebook who lives in Chicago, and his iguana is 20-some years old. And he's got pictures when he first did it. She's eating pepperoni pizza. Well, they didn't know any better. Somehow she has survived 20-some years through all this. But back then they didn't really know any better. And she's on a good vegetarian diet now. A lot is being learned. The longer they're in the pet trade, people are studying them. Reptile vet medicine, that's pretty new. There's becoming a lot more that are going into reptile vet care. Doctors, that are learning, and they're starting to pop up in more places. It's getting easier to find an exotic vet, but that just wasn't really a thing 10, 15 years ago.
What would be some questions you would ask of your local veterinarian to make sure that they're the right type or they're the right vet for your reptiles?
You would definitely have to screen your vet pretty carefully. I would not take a reptile to an ordinary vet. Reptiles are completely different than dogs and cats, and they don't go on the same medicines, and they don't react the same way to things. So I would definitely need somebody with experience. Most vets have bios and on their websites, and that would be the first place I'd look to see if they have any kind of experience or what their schooling was. I am lucky. I have an amazing vet down here in Wilmington. He has a lot of experience. He's trained with some of the best, and he actually used to work in the Florida Keys for a little while, and they did a lot of wild iguana spay and neuters to try to control the population down there.
Sure.
So he's got quite a bit of iguana experience and iguana surgery experience, which is really important because anesthesia to an iguana can be very dangerous.
Well, we're with Nicole Spencer, Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue. Nicole, what's the best way for folks to look your organization up?
We've got our website, southernreptile.com, and then we've got our Facebook page under Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue Inc. And those are the two main ways to get in touch with us.
If you had a magic wand and you could change the state of reptile rescue, what do you think you would do?
I would really like to see iguanas in general not in pet stores. That's been something that's kind of been on my mind for a while. Like here in North Carolina, I know in some states that they do give them away as fair prizes. Here in North Carolina, we've banned that, so they can't do it here, which is wonderful because you should never get an animal as a fair prize, especially one that's going to grow to 6 feet. I think if you want to have an iguana and you want one that bad and you're willing to take on that kind of responsibility, that you should either obviously rescue one, adopt one, or you should invest the money to buy one from a reputable breeder. I don't really promote breeding green iguanas because they're a dime a dozen right now, but if you're going to invest in something, you're going to take care of it. If you're going to go to a pet store and impulsively buy a $20 green iguana in a tank that they're going to sell you with it, there's no telling what's going to happen to that iguana.
Well, we just want to really just give you the last word. What else would you like to share with us, or what else is really important for folks listening to this to really know and understand about iguanas, tortoises, and the other animals that you've cared for?
The biggest thing is, it's not a dog. They're a commitment. My tortoises are going to live, I don't even know, 80 some years, 100 years. I have to will them to my child. They need space. They need so much space. My tortoises are grazers, so I have 5 acres. They're going to need quite a bit of my land when they get bigger. A 6-foot iguana is going to take up a lot of space, and they can't just kind of go in a cage and be left there. They need exercise and interaction. A lot of reptiles are really like having another child. It's not just an animal for a few years. It's really having another child in the house.
Well, we just want to say thank you to Nicole. Thanks for all you do. All the different animals that you've helped save over the years and in some cases find new homes for. Just amazing stuff. What does the future hold for Nicole Spencer?
Krista Paul says I need a new shed. I'll just keep doing this as long as I can. It does take a lot of money. I actually work from home, and I only work to pay for my iguanas. It takes a lot of money and a lot of space, and I'll just keep doing it as long as I can.
We want to say thank you to Nicole Spencer for sharing her story. And we also want to say thank you to Rose Hunter, previous guest, for connecting us with Nicole. If you want to learn more about Southern Reptile Saviors Rescue in North Carolina, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/126. Nicole also shares some terrific photos.
Music is composed, performed, and produced by Luke Gardner Brereton. Find him at info.vanillagroovemedia.com.
If you want to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on your favorite podcast app, such as Apple Podcasts, also known as iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. Type in Paw Print Animal Rescue and make sure to hit the subscribe button to get the latest episodes immediately. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for This Is Paw Print, all one word. We just want to say thank you for supporting Paw Print and sharing it with your friends and family. We're now at 126 episodes, and we couldn't have done it without your support. So thank you. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.